Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Hollywood Purgatory, where the entertainment industry goes to get judged. I'm Jeffrey Harris, 411 Mania. On the other end is Jay Snook of the Good Men Project. Say hi, Jay.
Hey there, how's it going?
Or you could have just, said hi, Jay. Anyway, so this week, the two big releases from 20th Century Fox. We had Kingsman, The Golden Circle, the sequel to the breakout hit of 2015, Kingsman, The Secret Service, and we had the Lego Ninjago movie, the latest feature animated Lego movie from Warner Brothers and the Warner Animation Group. So this week we wanted to do a bit of a spoiler cast on both these movies since Jay and I saw both of these films. We both have our own thoughts on these films, and we wanted to have a bit of an at-length discussion, if you will, a film analytical discussion on these movies. So we're going to start with the Lego Ninjago movie because I think if you see the results, it's not looking too good for Lego Ninjago right now. It's projected to make only about 20 million this weekend, so the results are not looking good for Lego Ninjago so far. So let me see by comparison the Lego Batman movie that was released earlier this year. That movie had an opening weekend of $53 million, so more than doubled Ninjago's take, and that movie finished with $175 million. Now let's look at the Lego movie from 2014. The Lego movie opened with $69 million. So, law of diminishing returns. So, what did you think of the Lego Ninjago movie, Jay?
Well, when it comes down to Lego Ninjago movie, I liked the beginning. The beginning was a nice surprise with like the live action stuff with Jackie Chan and the kid. That was really cool.
Okay.
So it had a good start, but overall, it was sillier than the previous two films. It wasn't as strong of a story. It had some good moments, but Lego Batman I enjoyed throughout. The Lego movie I enjoyed throughout. This one I did not enjoy throughout. There were parts that I thought were good, but there were parts that I thought could have been better or just were weaker.
If I told you this movie had 9 different credited writers, would you believe me?
No, I actually wouldn't. That sounds like a ridiculous number.
It does. So it has 7 screenwriters and it has 2 story writers. So that's 9 writers were actually credited on this movie, and that's a legit fact. Go to IMDb right now. So 9 writers on this film. And when you have that many writers on one movie that are actually credited as writing one movie. I mean, I know sometimes films go through a number of different rewrites and change hands, but when you have that many writers on one project who get a credit, I don't think that's ever a good sign. What do you think about that? What do you think that means, though?
Maybe they didn't have as much hope for this. Because I will say this about this movie. I don't know if they had as much hope for this one, because this was, I think, the first Lego movie that not only wasn't really open for a sequel, but shouldn't have a sequel.
Let me ask you, had you ever seen any of the Ninjago material beforehand? Had you ever watched the Ninjago TV show?
Nope, I have not.
Okay, because there are like 7 seasons of it, and that's where this came from. I mean, there were toys, but there was also an animated TV series, and it has some of the same characters, the same basic plot. But here is sort of my problem with the movie. You have like a whole team of ninjas, right? Like they're a team of superhero crime-fighting ninjas. You have Garmadon, who's sort of like this Power Ranger, Rita Repulsa, Lord Zed type of villain, right? Did any of the other ninja characters really have, did they even have actual characters? They had like archetypes and gimmicks, but they didn't feel like real characters to me. They just had like, there was like Kai, who was sort of like the meathead jock. You had Nia, who's sort of like tough girl. You had, one of them was like a vinyl DJ. Another one was sort of slightly neurotic. And another one was a robot. That's about it. They didn't really, didn't really have any meaningful characters. The only 2 people who sort of had anything resembling a character or character arc in the movie were Garmadon and Lloyd. And I think all they wanted to do was sort of push a Darth Vader Luke Skywalker dynamic sort of in a Lego style. What do you think?
You're sort of right there. It also was kind of weird where he's not always the bad guy. I mean, about what was like halfway through, he kind of becomes a sort of unwanted ally, which was kind of weird.
It didn't make sense in that
It was
story.
kind of weird, yeah. And it was weird where he lived in a house that was falling apart. That didn't necessarily make sense either.
What do you mean?
That was Garmadon's home. Remember when they went there and they're like, oh yeah, we have to go here to get this power.
That was like his childhood home. He had left.
True.
He didn't live there.
But it was just kind of weird. Like that didn't necessarily make sense. Like why would
we're talking way into the third act where they go to the other side of the island.
Yeah.
Because at one point, Lloyd, who is just so emotionally upset about how he's treated by his father, who's a villain, he uses the ultimate weapon. He steals it from his uncle and Sensei Wu, who is Garmadon's brother and Lloyd's uncle. Lloyd is the son of Garmadon. He steals the ultimate weapon, and what it is, it's like one of those laser pen flashlights,
laser pointers. That brings a giant cat called Mouthra.
Yeah, and it's like they're in a big Lego play set, and like the cat is like the curio shop owner from the beginning of the movie with Jackie Chan and the kid. It's like they're playing Legos, and the cat is like his pet in his curio shop, and they're it's like they're playing with Lego toys. So the cat like takes over Ninjago. So now the ninja have to go to the other side of the island to find the ultimate weapon to stop. I don't know. I thought they had to stop Garmadon because he had taken over Ninjago, and that's not good. But I guess they have to stop Mouthra too. And then Garmadon decides to go as well. He vanquishes their sensei, and they decide to team up with Garmadon. So none of that worked for me, and all that was done in a haphazard way. Hey, this guy just killed our sensei. Let's team up with him. And you have 9 writers. You have 9 writers on this film, and none of them sees the problem with that.
And you have to remember too. I knew right away the sensei wasn't actually gone. That was clear. So it wasn't a shock. At least for me, it wasn't a shock.
The point is, the bad guy who took over their city, beat their sensei and sent him over a cliff into a river. And they're like, well, we got to team up with him now, even though he he defeated our sensei. Now we have to team up with him and chat around with. That was dumb. Even
and then he stabs him in the back too.
Yeah, even in a comedy, even look, this is a zany, irreverent comedy. I get that, but even in a zany, irreverent comedy, I'm sorry, Lego people. I'm sorry, Lego Ninjago writers. That was dumb. Okay, it was straight out dumb. There's no excuse for that.
I did like some of the martial arts, but the comedy was kind of flat. It wasn't really that funny.
I mean, it's a comedy, but was anything really funny?
Not really, no.
All they did was they repeated a couple gags. Like they repeated the gag where Lloyd has his dragon mech and he fires all the missiles, and that ultimate weapon montage where it's just ultimate, bam, all the those kind of smash cuts of all the the badass imagery. They went to the well one too many times with those callback gags, and they weren't funny.
I thought it was funny though. The first time Wu does that little song on his the first time he did the flute song, I thought it was funny, but after that it wasn't funny anymore.
Oh, not Wu. His name is Sensei.
That's what
Wu.
I meant Wu. Yes, the first time. It was funny.
I know the names.
I was like, all right, that's kind of funny, silly but funny. But the second and third time, I was like, not so funny.
I know the names of the characters because I've watched all 7 seasons of this TV show. I got to be honest. I didn't like Jackie Chan as that character, Wu. I don't think it was a good choice. Because look, Jackie Chan. I mean, look, the guy's great. But English is not his first language, and to have him voice a character, where he doesn't really have a good command of the language in an animated movie, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And I just don't think he had the wit and comedy down for a role like that. But then again, his material wasn't that funny to begin with. Now, I'm going to get into this. You've seen the Kung Fu Panda movies, right?
Yes.
Who does Jackie Chan play in all those movies?
The monkey.
He plays Monkey.
Yes.
Does he do anything of note or say anything of note at all in those movies?
I think he had a bigger part in part 3, but 1 and 2, his part wasn't huge.
No. So, I mean, so what is the point of paying Jackie Chan all that extra money to play like a monkey character in Kung Fu Panda where he barely even has any lines and barely even does anything? Like, what? Like, I don't get that. You know what I mean? Like Jack Black.
I do have to disagree though. I liked Jackie Chan in this movie. I thought he was good for the role, and it would have been weird if they had like a white guy do the role. So I thought that I disagree. I thought he was.
I'm not
good.
saying a white guy. It doesn't have. I'm just saying a guy who can speak English better, who has a better command of the language. I'm not saying it has to be a white actor, but he can do the comedy in English well and do it at a good pace. I just think Jackie Chan is at his best when he can be physical with the role and he can do all the things like Jackie Chan is known, like Super Cop, like that's or the Police Story films. Have you seen any of those films? Rumble in the Bronx.
I did see that one, but it's been a long time.
Okay, so like those are some classic Jackie Chan movies. He's like a physical. You know, he's almost like Charlie Chaplin in a way. He's a physical, like martial arts comedian almost, and that's when I think he's best. I just think trying to get him as a voice actor for these like kids movies isn't. I don't think it's a good fit. Just like I don't think he was a good fit in Kung Fu Panda. Look, now just for example, in the same franchise, like Jack Black, he makes that character of Po. Like it's his character. And he's great in that character. But they give Black tons to do. And Black can play that character very well. Whereas Jackie Chan playing Monkey or Wu, it doesn't make much sense at all. And he doesn't really have a meaningful character or anything in the way. I don't really even think any of his jokes in the movie were that funny.
I disagree again. I mean, I agree with Kung Fu Panda. He doesn't have much to do there, but I thought he was given more to do here, and I personally liked him as Master Wu. I thought he was a good. What
did you like about
him? I liked that, like, just the way the character was kind of how he was, because, like, you know, I could see him being Master Wu at, like, later in life. I could see him being that character, you know? Someone who, like, you know, knows all this martial arts stuff and takes, like, on young people who, like, are, you know, arrogant, which the team was. And showing them, you know what, your mechs aren't your power. You actually have power. I could. I thought it was a good fit.
It was not developed though. It was all threadbare, and like he's their martial arts teacher, but like who makes all those mechs anyway?
I thought they did. Didn't they make them themselves?
It doesn't even say where they even get them. Like. In the TV show, they actually know spinjitzu, and here the spinjitzu was just like a throwaway gag. So it's like, why hasn't he actually been teaching them how to fight? That was another problem I had. But so the movie's not doing very well right now. It's probably going to open with 20 million. So all the marketing is like from the team that brought you such and such, from the team that brought you the Lego movie, the Lego Batman movie. To me, it's never a good sign when the linchpin of the marketing material for a movie is from the team that brought you. Who gives a flying hoot what this team did before? Who cares about a team? It's one thing to say Christopher Nolan, the director of The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises and Inception and all that, because it's Christopher Nolan, or Steven Spielberg, the director of Indiana Jones and Schindler's List. That's Steven Spielberg. Does anyone care? It's the team. Like it's not even the same writers, and you can clearly tell because the movie's written nowhere near as well as Lego Batman or even the Lego movie.
True. But I will say this, though. I like this movie, but it is the weakest of all the Lego movies I've ever seen.
Why did you like this movie, Jay? I'm giving you all these reasons.
Overall, it had its weak moments, but the animation was really good. I like the
The animation was the best thing about the movie. So let's get that on the table. But go ahead.
So the animation was good, and like I said, I liked Jackie Chan as Master Wu. I liked him through it.
Did you like Dave Franco as Lloyd?
Yeah, he did a good job as Lloyd. Yeah, but those were I think those are the only two really good actors. So the rest were just kind of like not as like the guy who was Garmadon.
Justin Theroux.
Was it Garmadon or Gargadon?
Garmadon. His name is Garmadon.
Justin Garmadon was a really weird villain, not as strong of a villain as the previous films. So it wasn't David Thoreau's fault.
Justin
Theroux's fault, sorry. But it wasn't as strong of a villain. So the villain wasn't even necessarily a villain. He was, but he wasn't. So
I don't get what the movie was going for, because it seems like Lloyd is wrong for resenting his father for being a bad guy and for neglecting him for his whole childhood. But it's almost like the movie's trying to say, Lloyd, you're wrong for rejecting your father, but your father's a deadbeat. And then it's like, to me, it's like the writers can't rectify that. Maybe accepting that your dad's a deadbeat and forgiving him are two different things. Why does Garmadon deserve forgiveness at all?
I don't know.
Does he? I mean, he's a bad guy.
When I look at it now, you're right about the Star Wars stuff. There is a lot of I didn't realize it when I saw it, but
Star Wars, as in they want. I feel like what the writers wanted was to play with the dynamic of the Luke Skywalker Darth Vader relationship.
You're right.
But do it in a comedic Lego setting. Like, okay, you have this young hero. You have like his dad. Maybe there's good in him. His dad's a bad guy, wants to like destroy everything and take over, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to play with that dynamic of hero son, villain father, like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, but make it a comedy with Legos. That's what I felt they wanted to do.
And I think what they did too with this movie, it's kind of apparent when we're talking about it here, is I think they got confident because the Lego movie and the Lego Bat movie did so good. They felt, hey, we just do it Lego. We put all these like big stars into it. It'll do well. And I think that's what happened with this movie, which is why it's so weak from the other two.
I think, they struck gold with the Lego movie. They got lightning in a bottle. But when that happens, movie studios want to basically, when they find a trend that people like, they basically have to kill it. And what I mean is they have to oversaturate the market with it until people are sick of it. And I feel like we could be getting to that point with the Lego projects. What do you think?
I don't think so, because they are doing a Lego movie too, and it wouldn't surprise me if they did a Lego Batman too. It hasn't been announced, but it wouldn't surprise me. But this movie, like I said, just shows you have to put more work into these than just doing it Legos. It's not enough. Just doing Legos.
Clearly not for this
Lego project.
But look, this movie is going to be the worst performing out of any of these. Like the Lego movie was a huge hit. The Lego Batman movie was a huge hit. This isn't going to do even probably half the business of either of those films.
And one reason for that is because the Lego movie itself was original. Entirely original. Even Lego Batman took stuff from previous Batmans and made it its own. It wasn't like other Batmans. This, it sounds like, from what I've heard, isn't like the show at all, right? Or it's not the same as the show, correct? The show's better?
The show is far better. The budget for this movie was also a lot higher than the Lego movie as well. This movie was $70 million. The Lego movie was $60 million. Interesting. So...
But overall, I think this will be a movie that kids will like, but it's not something you have to run out and see. That's for sure.
Kids, all right. So the fact of the matter is, can you take kids to see this movie and will they enjoy it? Yeah, I think they will. I think
do too.
As a kids movie, it's somewhat acceptable. But is it a good movie? No, I don't think it is. I'm sorry.
Here's what I'll say. It's good, but it's not as good as the previous two. So it's not going to be for the whole family, this one. You can't take the whole family this and they won't all enjoy it.
I think you're softballing the movie here, Jay. And you were too hard on American Assassin.
Whatever.
Whatever. Whatever. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
It's all right. World doesn't end. I'll live.
So moving right along. So we both saw Kingsman, The Golden Circle, the sequel to Kingsman, The Secret Service, which was came out in February 2015 and was a breakout hit. So what did you think of Kingsman and The Secret Service, the first movie, when it came out?
That one really blew me away. It was the first free movie I ever saw by myself, and I was really, really surprised just how good it was, because it was, a mix of a good cast, an original story, a different kind of villain. It had really good action sequences, and
it was just subversive. It was subversive in a good way.
And it had a lot of really good twists and turns as the story progressed. So I thought it was really great. I was very surprised by it.
So you have most of the cast coming back for Kingsman: The Golden Circle. You have Taron Egerton as Eggsy. You have Mark Strong as Merlin, and you even have Colin Firth back as Harry from the first movie, even though we thought he was dead. So what were your impressions of The Golden Circle, this sequel?
Well, I will say this. It had a good, strong beginning. I liked that beginning action sequence was really good, a good start for the film. But sadly, it kind of had its bumpy moments after that. It did.
A lot of bumpy moments.
Yeah, like the villain definitely wasn't as strong. That's just a fact. Even though I like Julianne Moore,
I love her too.
She was not that strong of a villain. She was kind of almost too twisted of a villain, to be honest, for this series, I think.
We'll get into it a little later, but they didn't even commit to her as the main villain, if you remember the end.
True. But I actually kind of liked how they did the Colin Firth return thing, because it made sense how they do it. It wasn't just like he's here and he's here like the trailers. So I like that. And the scene where, he comes back to himself, I thought was a really good scene. It was kind of a throwback to the original, but also went ahead and had new elements were explained. I
didn't like bringing back Colin Firth, but basically here's what it is. In the first movie, since this is a spoiler cast and we're getting into spoiler territory, he was shot by Samuel L. Jackson's character, Valentine, in the first movie. He was shot point blank in the head. So there was another intelligence agency called the Statesman. The Statesmen have this sort of magic science medicine, pseudoscience, whatever you want to call it, called like a gel pack. And apparently they're able to use it to protect a gunshot. Someone who's received a headshot, it can protect and preserve their brain while the tissue is repaired. I don't know how such a thing. Look, it's based on a comic book, okay? Whatever. So they take him back to their base of operations in Kentucky, and once he recovered from the tissue repair, he had long-term amnesia, and he didn't even know who he was, and they couldn't even. He was off the grid for Kingsman, so they didn't even know he was a member of the Kingsman agency, which is the Statesman is sort of a cousin agency of Kingsman, which is basically wiped out in the first act. Julianne Moore's character and her minion Charlie, who survived, a trainee from the first film who became one of Valentine's sort of, part of Valentine's culture to start the new world or whatever. He survived from the first film and joined Julianne Moore's character, Poppy, who's the head of a drug cartel. And they hack into the Kingsman database, and they use all that information to send a missile strike. They blow up their base. They blow up the homes of all the other agents, and the only survivors are Eggsy and Merlin, who were not at their homes when the missile strike was launched. So Roxy, his friend from the first movie, she's gone too. Baby, his pet pug, is dead, and one of his friends got killed too. So they pretty much wiped out Kingsman, and then they find a clue in the Doomsday Protocol. We got to go to Kentucky. That's where Statesman is, and Statesman is sort of the American equivalent. It's run by Jeff Bridges, who's called Champ. And one of the members is Channing Tatum, who plays Tequila. Channing Tatum is absolutely useless in this movie, and I'm not saying that because
he's barely in it. To be fair,
hold on, let me finish. And I'm not saying that because I hate Channing Tatum. He's barely in the movie, so why go through the trouble of writing a character for Channing Tatum and putting him in the movie when he's not even in the movie at all? Like it's a waste of Channing Tatum, and it's a waste of like writing this. Maybe this is a cool and interesting character, but he has nothing to do. He has that one fight scene near the beginning, and that's pretty much all you get of him after that.
Pretty much, yeah.
My idea was, okay, you have this other character, Pedro Pascal, who I think he was on Game of Thrones, right?
Maybe. You might be right.
Aren't you the big Game of Thrones fan?
Yeah, I think he was. He was the one who got killed by the mountain, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was then. That makes
sense.
He
was, what was his name? Oberon?
Something like that. Yes, that sounds right.
One of the guys from Dorne.
Right.
Got killed, got his head crushed by the mountain.
Yeah.
What if you would combine the Channing Tatum and Pedro Pascal characters into just the same character? And then that kind of, I think, solves the problem of, okay, you put in these characters who really don't have anything to do and don't really have any measure in the plot. Do you think that could have maybe helped the movie a little bit?
Well, no, but I have a reason why that.
Damn it!
But I can explain. But I can explain to you why, though.
Fix the movie.
Because I talked to one of the reps, and he said there's a reason why Channing Tatum's character was the way it was in this movie.
What did the rep say?
He said they are going to do a trilogy, so that's why.
So what? I don't care about a third movie. I care about this movie being disappointing and that character not working at all.
Yeah.
That's not making okay, they want to make a trilogy. That's not really a good reason for why they didn't use that character or why he didn't really you introduce this character and he has nothing to do.
I'm not saying I disagree with you. I agree with you. It's just like, okay. That's why they did it, I think.
That still doesn't make sense to me.
I'm not saying it does either. I'm just saying that's the reason I was given.
All right. I mean, yeah, they might do a third movie, but look, the movie's probably going to do pretty well this week, and I'm sure they could make a third movie if they wanted. Mm-hmm. But I was just, look, I love the first movie. I thought the first movie was clever. I thought it was refreshing. I thought it was, really subversive. I thought it was absurd in a good way. Mm-hmm. It was sort of, it sort of walked a thin line between parody and absurd and being still being a cool spy action movie. I thought it walked that line very well, and I was very entertained by it. Mm-hmm. Here, I thought there were just so many missteps and so many misguided story things. Like, for example, I didn't like killing off Roxy, Agent Lancelot. That made no sense to have her in there and just kill her off like that. Mm-hmm. I didn't. And they kill off a lot of characters I thought was bad. Like, don't kill off these characters. They're good characters. And yet you do go through all this trouble of bringing back Harry in the most contrived way possible. Mm-hmm. So I didn't understand. I just don't understand, like, why kill off cool characters and yet you killed off Harry only to bring him back in this film. It makes no sense.
I disagree. I liked him coming back and how they explained it. I like that because when you see him in the trailers, you're just like, oh, he's in the movie again for some freaking reason. We have no clue why. So I liked where they explained, okay, this is how it happened and why he's back and how he came back. When
we find that out, I was not satisfied with that explanation. And I think Harry, of course I was shocked when Harry died in the first film, but I thought it worked because it was shocking and you weren't expecting that. And it was sort of turning that moment on it, those sort of genre conventions on their head, which the first movie did very well. Mm-hmm. And then it helped Eggsy's character. It helped him grow as a character. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes characters like their figures or mentor figures will die, and that will influence or help the character grow in a certain way. Mm-hmm. So to go back on that, I just feel it was sort of weak to go back on that, and I don't think it was necessary. Otherwise, you shouldn't have really permanently killed Harry in such a way it made it look like he was permanently dead at the end of the first movie. The only reason they brought back Harry is because the first movie was popular, and Colin Firth was the most amazing thing about it. And he was sort of the fan favorite role in the film. And I think if you're going to do that, you need a more organic reason for making a move like that. And I don't feel they had one, because I got to be honest, after Harry came back, I don't really feel like he had a meaningful role either.
Well, I will agree that his role wasn't as strong as the last one, but he still had his role, I think. It just wasn't as strong as the last one. Now, what did you think about Jeff Bridges in this film?
I love Jeff Bridges. The Big Lebowski is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think Jeff Bridges is amazing. I think he served no purpose in this film and had nothing to do. I think you could have had that character as like a voice in the box or something, and it would have worked just as well. Or I don't know. It seemed like a waste of Jeff Bridges. Like, I liked him playing sort of like this sort of like Kentucky guy, kind of who's head of a secret spy agency. Because look, they get all their funding through the stock market and all that. And
So you mean Statesman alcohol?
Yeah, that's how they get their funding. They're an independent clandestine agency, and they obviously get all their funding from, you know, the company on the stock market. So I like that idea. It's just that the character didn't really have much weight in the plot to me. What about you?
I beg to differ because he was the head of the organization.
So?
I think he was a good head of the organization. I liked him as the head of the organization. You know? So
well, at least Michael Caine as the head of the Kingsman in the first movie had sort of a more meaningful character arc to the rest of the story, whereas Jeff Bridges here didn't really seem to have much weight on what was happening in the events of the film at all, other than giving Statesman a figurehead who didn't really do all that much.
Now, I will say who was kind of underutilized here was Halle Berry. She wasn't bad, but she wasn't mind-blowing. Like, her character didn't have
I mean, look, Halle Berry's an Academy Award-winning actress, and the idea of her being in a Kingsman sequel, it sounds really cool, doesn't it? You know, getting to see someone of her caliber get to play around in sort of this fun, absurd, genre subverting world, and she's just sort of your average everyday lab tech. I thought it was a waste of her talents as well, to be honest.
It is. I agree with you there.
Okay.
And what I didn't like about this movie too, it really bugged me, was there were a lot of cheesy one-liners in here that were just too cheesy for my tastes. There really were. Did you notice that?
Such as what?
Well, like when she says, she calls his new arm Armageddon. That was ridiculous. I was like, seriously? Ugh.
I didn't care for the Poppy character. Poppy was not as strong a villain as Samuel Jackson as Valentine.
No, she really wasn't. I totally agree. She was just like almost like too demented, it seemed like, where Samuel Jackson's character was demented, but not that demented, where she grinds people up in the hamburger meat, for God's sakes.
I felt like with that they were trying way too hard.
Yeah.
Like, again, the first movie I thought walked a very thin line and managed to balance that act. But once we get to the part of her putting one of her like minions in a meat grinder and then feeding him to another minion after cooking him into a hamburger, I'm like, come on here.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Like, the first movie was cartoony, but it wasn't that cartoony. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's the worst scene. The worst scene for this movie. So at one point, they're investigating Charlie, who works for Poppy. They're trying to track his movements through his girlfriend. His girlfriend, she's gone to the Glastonbury Music Festival, so they look for her there. and they have this whole extended sequence where we need to get a tracking device on her, but not just on her, inside her. And what I mean by inside her, they have to insert it through her mucous membrane in her genitalia. And that is the most
with basic, a finger condom, no less, pretty much. It's pretty much a finger condom.
With a finger condom. And that's the tamest way I can put this.
Yeah, that was a really weird scene that just like...
And it kept going. It kept going. And not only did it keep going, like the woman in the first film, the princess he saves, Tildy, like Eggsy got together with her and they're like a couple. And like they're like he's talking about settling down with her, and he actually calls her on the phone saying, "Hey babe, is it okay if I cheat on you because I got to put a tracking device in this woman's privates to save the world?" And I'm like, what is going on? Like, this isn't funny.
No, not really.
Like, this isn't funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really weird ass scene that dragged the movie down.
It dragged the movie down. Not only that, because they start getting busy. And then after they start getting busy, you see him inserting the finger condom. You actually see like an internal, like think about this. Animators actually rendered the inside of a woman's privates. And I'm trying to keep it like relatively language free here because we're on YouTube, you know? They actually animated the inside of this woman and the tracking device going, you know, going upper place. Look, I am not like this. I didn't like this, man. Like who? Like, did anyone like that? Because it was like, like, what did you think of this scene?
It was weird because you're like first of all, they have the whole Tinder scene, which was kind of weird, and they thought that was some joke, that like generational thing that was kind of weird.
Right.
Where, you know, first the one guy tries to hit on her, and then like Eggsy comes in going, "Oh, you're too old. Let me do this." And then like,
did you need to see like the image of a tracking device going up a CG rendered version of a woman's genitalia?
No, not really. It didn't make any sense. It was just one of the weirdest ways.
There was nothing like that in the first movie.
Yeah, it was one of the weirdest ways they could have done it. It's like they wanted to try to do it for shock value, but it's just kind of weird and drags the film down.
And here I'm just going to give you an example. In the first movie, like Valentine meets with Harry and they eat McDonald's. Remember that? And Valentine clearly knows that Harry is some sort of secret agent. He clearly like he's clearly suspicious of Harry. And he's able to track Harry, and all he does is say, "I put tracking gel in his wine."
Yeah.
It's that simple. Like, they didn't design a whole sequence of how Valentine's gonna stick a tracking device up his rear end and track him all over the globe in Kentucky or whatever. He just said, "Oh, I gave him some sort of synthetic tracking gel. It was in his wine. He drank it. Now we can track where he is." And it was one line. And they did, and they didn't need to do it, and it worked fine because Valentine is probably a guy of resources. He's probably a brilliant scientist. You figure he could probably figure out how to design a liquid tracking device that it's in your system and you can track someone with sort of liquid, I don't know, some sort of liquid marker. Maybe it has nanites inside of it. Who knows? It was simple. Yet in this movie, we like. Would it surprise you if I told you this movie was co-written by a woman? Because it was. Jane Goldman co-wrote this movie. She co-wrote the first one as well. I just found, and look, I'm not a prude or anything, and I'm not, you know, I don't really care about political correctness or anything, but that whole scene, it just felt wrong.
It was weird, yeah.
Am I being too sensitive here?
No, you're right. Because it was like a scene you're just like, so why is this in the movie now? Because it didn't really need to be. You know? Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you, the one thing I probably did like about the movie is that Tildy from the first one, remember the girl at the end of the first one? If you save the world, ... you know. You remember that gag?
Yeah.
I like that they were together because to me, in like a spy movie, like the main character, the hero, he has sort of a sexual conquest and you never see her again.
Mhm.
Yet in this movie, he gets together with the girl he met in the first movie, and they're actually together, and they're a nice couple together. That I like that idea, because it kind of turns the whole idea of like a woman you seduce that the spy introduces, and like she's just nothing more than a sexual conquest. It kind of turned that on its head. That idea I liked, but the whole thing with like, oh, can I cheat on you because I got to put this tracking device inside this woman? I'm like,
yeah,
it went too far.
it did.
It's not, and I'm not saying too far as in like it should have been censored. It's just that too far in that I thought it was dumb.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was dumb, and we just don't need to see that. Even in an R-rated movie that's very irreverent and over the top and outrageous, I'm like, this really doesn't move the plot along at all. It doesn't. It's not necessary.
I totally agree.
You could have just put it in her bag. You could have cloned her phone. Mm-hmm. Like, do you ever watch Person of Interest?
No, but I know of the show.
Like on Person of Interest, every week they clone a suspect's phone and they can track them at however. She's a young woman in her 20s. Like, clone her phone or put a tracking device on her phone. It's going to be easy to trace.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah, they did that. Now You See Me, and it was simple.
Like, why do you need a woman like that is not going to go anywhere without her cell phone or her pocketbook or whatever? Mm-hmm. Why is that so hard to figure out? It's such a isn't. But am I wrong here, Jay? Am I being unfair?
No, you're not wrong with that scene. You're not wrong at all. I
think most people who even like the first movie have the same problem as I do.
I think you're right.
Now, let me ask you, some women were offended by the ending of the first movie when he gets together with the princess. Did that bother you at all?
No, I didn't think it bothered me. No, it didn't bother me.
Like, some women, I guess some women and critics, they find that a little tasteless and think that's a little, I get, anti-women or something. What do you think?
I didn't think so. I think it was kind of nice to see that actually happen, right? It was kind of like, so I didn't think it was bad. No.
It's a spy movie, and like, the woman, the characters become a couple in this movie, and I like that. Mm-hmm. I just think it went in a weird direction.
You know another thing I like about this movie, real quick, I want to talk about? Okay. Elton John. Elton John was great.
All right. Elton John, go crazy.
You could tell he had fun in this movie. You really could, especially toward the end. You could tell he was at least having fun being in this movie, being himself, and kind of not being himself at the same time. So I did like his scenes in this movie. I thought they were great. I really enjoyed them.
Sir Elton has a role in the film as himself. He's one of Poppy's terrorists at her little base, Poppyland,
he's a captive. He's not a terrorist. He's a captive.
What?
He's a captive.
I'm sorry. He's held captive. Yeah. He's held captive by Poppy at her little drug cartel village called Poppyland, which is sort of this like little theme park of 1950s Americana, 1950s nostalgia. Here's my problem with the ending. Okay. It didn't work to me that like they beat Poppy and then they have to beat. What happens is that Pedro Pascal's character, Whiskey, turns out he's not working with Poppy, but he wants her plot to work because he has it in for. Here's the thing: because Poppy puts this virus into recreational drugs, and it exposes all these regular, average working Joes and everything who are using, recreational drugs, or they're smoking pot or whatever, and if they don't get an antidote that Poppy will deliver around the world, they're all going to die. Yeah. And Pedro Pascal's character, Whiskey, he wants all those people to die because he doesn't like, drug addicts because they were responsible for the death of his wife or something.
His fiancée. Yeah, you're right. Was it fiancée or wife?
It was his girlfriend, his childhood sweetheart, whatever. Yeah. Might have been his wife, might have been his fiancée. So then Harry, after Harry and Eggsy beat Poppy, and they go through this whole big action sequence where they're killing all of Poppy's minions and everyone and fighting them at Poppyland. They have to, they have to get Poppy's password on her computer to activate the antidote, which will drone deliver all the antidote to all the hubs of sick people with the virus all over the world. And the United States president doesn't want to negotiate any deal because he doesn't want to end the war on drugs to help Poppy's cause. Mm-hmm. So here's why this didn't work. It didn't work to me to have a character like Pedro, to have a character like Whiskey come in at the very end. He's not even on Poppy's side, but like he wants all the drug addicts to die. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It was kind of haphazard. It was kind of sloppy to me.
What I didn't like about it either was it wasn't necessarily a surprise because you kind of knew that was going to happen. Like what was
I wrote in my review. They telegraphed that plot twist way early on in the movie. They did. And I'm going to tell you when they telegraphed it when the president is having a meeting at the president of the United States, Bruce Greenwood, is like revealing that, well, you know what? Poppy wants us to end the war on drugs. I say screw her, screw all the people who have the virus. We'll just let them die, and we win the war on drugs or something. And then they're listening at the Statesman base, and Champ is like, we got to help these people. We got to get them the antidote. And then you hear Whiskey says, but sir, we can't make this personal. And I'm like, at that very moment, I was like, this guy, he's going to be a bad guy. He's a turncoat. And in that moment, I knew midway through the movie, at the very end, he was going to turn on everyone. And
that wasn't the moment I knew it. The moment when Colin Firth's character says he's, probably working against us, that's when I knew, okay, that's going to happen.
Okay. So I knew it even earlier. But to me, they telegraphed that plot twist where it was obvious that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got to be honest, when Michael Caine turned out to be working with Valentine in the first movie, like that was kind of surprising, at least. You weren't expecting. I don't think, to me, they did not telegraph that turn early into the movie like they did here.
True.
And the fact that Pascal's character, Whiskey, he wasn't even really working with Poppy. He just had a vendetta. So technically he wanted revenge against drug addicts or whatever. But I mean, doing that in a Kingsman movie, it doesn't really work because this isn't a political thriller. It's Kingsman. It's a spy. It's like a self-effacing sort of postmodern spy action movie. Putting a character like that into Kingsman didn't work to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So, out of 10, what would you rate this movie, Jay?
I gave it a 6 out of 10 because I still didn't. Okay. There were some parts of it I still liked, but it wasn't as strong as the first one.
I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Okay.
And I'm not saying you can't like this movie because, look, the movie's action-packed. It's over the top. It's fairly fast-paced. For some people, there might be things to enjoy here. And you know what? I say more power to you. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to begrudge anyone who likes this movie. I just think I love the first movie. Mm-hmm. You liked the first movie, right?
Yes, I loved it. I did, yes.
I was disappointed here. And as a fan of the first movie, I think quite a few mistakes were made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked this one, but I didn't love it like the first. Like the first one I could watch again and again and again. This one I wouldn't watch again and again and again.
Okay. So Matthew Vaughn, yeah, go ahead.
When I left going, it was okay, but it was definitely a weaker sequel.
Matthew Vaughn wants to make a third movie, and he wants The Rock as the villain. What do you think of that?
Not
a fan of The Rock, of the biggest movie star on the planet.
Here's the thing.
Literally and figuratively.
Here's the thing about it. I don't mind them doing a third, but The Rock, I don't think he's ever played a villain, has he?
Yeah, in Doom.
Yeah, but he wasn't that good of a villain in that. Not really.
He still played the villain.
He was like a villain toward the end because he got like
Scorpion King, his cinematic debut. He was the villain.
Yeah, but he wasn't the villain for that long in that either. He was toward the end.
He was still a villain. He was still a villain.
He was a villain, and he wasn't that strong of a villain there. And then in Doom, he became a villain toward the end because he got like infected, but he wasn't a villain for that long either. So I think a villain is a bad call.
He was still kind of the villain of the movie. He was the end villain.
Yeah, I think a villain for him is a bad idea because he does better with good guys than bad guys. That's just the reality. So I think if he's going to be the villain, they need to come up with a better idea.
So you don't want to see The Rock play a villain in Kingsman 3 is what I'm getting from you.
Yes, because he has not been a good villain in the past, and it's not his fault. The villain just hasn't been given much to do.
All right, so we're going to change gears here a little bit, and now we want to get into the discussion of the new Fox TV drama comedy, sci-fi drama comedy. It's a genre mashup. It is called The Orville. It's Seth MacFarlane's new TV series. What is this show? Imagine Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy and American Dad, doing Star Trek, and that's exactly what this is. But it's not like a straight parody. It is a slight parody, but it's still a 1-hour drama format, but with some like Seth MacFarlane comedy and sarcastic wit sprinkled in. So they've already aired the first 3 episodes. I've watched all 3. You've watched the first 2. Yeah. What did you think of the pilot? What were your thoughts on the pilot of The Orville?
You know, the pilot I really hated.
You hated it?
And here's why.
Wow.
And here's why.
I've never heard you say you hate something.
And here's why. Because the show was being pushed at that point as a comedy.
Right.
And every single joke.
It was being pushed as a comedy before the pilot. And
every single joke in that pilot fell flat. I don't think even I laughed once. Every single joke I was like was just so cheesy and horrible, and like they weren't even trying that hard.
Well, what do you think of Seth MacFarlane as a comedian and like a performer?
What do you mean?
Well, like, do you like Ted? Do you like Family Guy? Do you like Seth
MacFarlane? I liked Ted 1 and 2. I'm not a huge fan of Ted, but I did like Ted 1 and 2, and I liked American Dad. So he can be good at comedy when he tries to do something original. But I hated A Million Ways to Die in the West because that wasn't trying anything original. That was just trying too hard.
Right.
So he can do good comedy.
Did it remind you too much of A Million Ways to Die in the West, the style? Just in a sci-fi setting?
The comedy does. The comedy certainly does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think, does it not work to meld the type of comedy Seth MacFarlane delivers, but still keeping a fairly straight drama format? Because the plots for the first 2 episodes were fairly straight sci-fi drama television, just with, weaving some Seth MacFarlane jokes in there. Do you think that works, or does that not work?
I will say this. I liked the second episode better. For starters, because it's not trying so hard to be a comedy. It's kind of at that point, it's like, all right, I guess we're a drama. Let's try to be more dramatic. There was still a little bit of comedy sprinkled in there, but nowhere near as much as the pilot.
I think in the 3rd episode, they're even going further in that route, where in the 3rd episode, they're almost a straight drama, just with some jokes thrown in.
And the second one was kind of the same way. The second one had that where there were less jokes and it was more serious. There were a few sprinkled in, but it wasn't even try as hard comedy as the first one.
So here's the deal. We have Ed Mercer. He's the member of this Starfleet proxy. It's called the Union. This sort of intergalactic, multi-planet alliance of civilized races. So you have humans, alien races, and all sorts sort of mixed in. They're all working together like the UN, and they have a fleet of ships. Ed Mercer's he's a good officer, but he's been in a slump. His marriage went down the toilet after his wife, Adrian Palicki, had an affair. He's been having drinking problems. And the admiral of the fleet offers him a captaincy aboard the Orville because they need, they have so many ships and they need it. They have the spot they need to be filled, and they're giving him one last chance. And Ed Mercer's wanted to be a captain his whole life. So Seth MacFarlane, the creator, he's the lead of this show. What do you think of Seth MacFarlane as a leading man and him playing the leading man of a series like this?
I think when he's not trying so hard to be funny and just trying to be more dramatic, he does a good job. But when he's trying to be funny, it falls flat on here. I really do.
Really?
Because I'll say this about the second episode. The second episode was not only better, but it had more surprises, and it was kind of cool what they did there.
I gotta be. I like Ted. I didn't really like the sequel. I haven't really liked Family Guy in a long time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I'm not saying you shouldn't watch Family Guy or you shouldn't be a fan of Family Guy. I just think Family Guy has sort of not really been all that funny since like the early, like since 2011 or 2013, basically.
I would say when it stopped being funny was when they did, I've got a bad feeling about this, the third Star Wars movie. The first two were good. The third one was terrible.
Right.
It was just awful. It was like painful to watch, the third one. And
I can tell he's clearly passionate about Star Trek and wanting to do a show like Star Trek and putting his own personal spin on it.
Yeah, he was actually on Star Trek Enterprise. You know that? He had a cameo.
Right. That's right. Mm-hmm. That was I think that was one of his first live action TV roles.
I think you're right. I believe you're right.
I think he's decent in the show, but yeah, I think some of the comedy, like some of the jokes, I think in the what was it, the second episode where his first officer is having an egg, and he's trying to tell him jokes like I know it's sort of like he's playing to an audience who where the jokes don't really work, but his jokes just aren't funny at all.
Yeah,
and
they're not. They're not.
I think the show works more when it's not telling the jokes honestly.
I agree. Like when they went to the human zoo, when I went to the zoo was great. That was a cool twist.
That's classic. That's a classic sci-fi trope, honestly.
Has Star Trek done it before?
I don't know if Star Trek's done that, but it's. I think that's popped up in literature before, where like
I could see.
I remember a short story where like an alien spaceship. It's like a zoo, and humans are observing aliens as like the exhibits, and then the ship leaves, and it turns out the aliens were going to a zoo to observe humans.
And so didn't Superman kind of did that, right? There was one guy who collected, but was that the collector?
Superman the animated series did a thing where this alien kind of wants to collect like other like endangered aliens, like because Superman's the last Kryptonian, and put them in his collection. So similar concept, but here it was like an alien race who views other races as superior,
inferior.
Right. An alien race that thinks it's superior to humans. That's their area of space is closed off from the Union, and so it's sort of like the way humans observe animals, right? These aliens view humans the same way, and some other alien races as well, and they put them as exhibits in their little interstellar zoo on their planet.
Yeah,
that I think is sort of like it's a repeated sci-fi sort of basic plot that you've seen in sci-fi TV. I think you've seen it done repeatedly.
I don't remember seeing it done much personally.
You can find it in multiple things, but I think the show works better when it's working in that kind of world without all the sort of gunky humor, because the humor, I feel like they're trying too hard to be funny with the humor. Yeah. And I think the show's in its element when it's like, oh, like these people could really die and get hurt, and we're dealing with real stakes here.
Well, like I like the subplot with the girl when she becomes the captain when they leave. I liked her subplot because that was kind of cool to see her be vulnerable, and she's supposed to be this really strong character.
And there wasn't anything really comedic about that subplot either, really.
Yeah, and there didn't need to be.
Like Scott Grimes, he's like the helmsman. And he comes like when he comes up with the trick to go around that hostile alien species. I think in the first episode.
Yeah.
What did he call that? Something with the goat? Like this is rounding the goat or something?
Something like that.
Something like that. That's just banter. Like I think they can do banter okay, but the comedy less so.
And I will say this, I liked how they ended the second episode. That was kind of a cool little twist.
They actually, yeah, that.
Yeah.
Well, here's my issue with that. In the first episode, Seth MacFarlane asks that character, "You have a single gender species?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Yeah, we're all male." And he makes some jokes about that, about like a society of like an alien race that's only male.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gives birth to a female daughter, a female Mocklin. And then the whole third episode is about that. And it was very interesting, actually. I like how they did it. And again, I think it's better when it's doing the serious stuff, but not as good with the comedy. So I wonder if going forward, they are going to emphasize the drama and the sci-fi plots over the comedy.
I think it's the best thing to do because it's its stronger suit. And not only that, but I have fear for this show because I think people are going to watch it expecting, like I did with the pilot, it's going to be funny, and it's not. It's not a comedy at all. It's nowhere near a comedy.
Right.
And it doesn't even really, it's starting to try less from the 2 episodes I've watched to be a comedy. So I think if it keeps getting pushed as a comedy, people are going to watch it going, what the heck? This is not a comedy. So I think that might hurt it and maybe even ruin it right there.
You know what I didn't like about the ending for the second episode? What happened to all the other people at the zoo? They freed that little kid, but what about all the other innocent aliens who were stranded there?
Well, that's not the ending I mean. I mean the ending where they had the reality shows. I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, the reality show.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. I like
that. I thought that was amusing. But what happened to the other aliens at the zoo?
I guess they couldn't save them all.
I mean, I don't think that's cool because, like, all those people, like, they might have families or something. All those other aliens, and they've been stuck there for months, maybe years.
True, but it was at least where they were at it was kind of realistic how they did it because they couldn't save everybody. If they could, they would. But there's no way
they didn't even. To me, they didn't even address it other than the fact that we saved this little kid. Like, to me, there should be like I don't know some contemplative thought where they have this whole zoo of innocent aliens being kept against their will and they can't go home. And to me, that's a problem. But to me, that's a flaw in the writing for the show. Okay, so Orville, renewed or canceled after one season? What do you think?
I think that it definitely, I think it has a better chance of being canceled, sadly. I really do.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it's not what it's being publicized to be. It's not a comedy. It's a drama. That's just what it is. It's a sci-fi drama.
Did you ever watch 24?
No, I haven't. Okay.
Well, the doctor, Penny Johnson-Gerald, who plays the ship doctor, is from 24, and I liked her on 24, so I'm kind of happy to see her back on TV in a TV series. Is there anyone else you like in the show who stands out to you? Do you like Adrian Palicki on the show?
I think she's pretty good, actually. Yeah, because she's kind of like she's a good first officer for the captain because she does kind of like, kind of keep him centered. I mean, she's the one we find at the end of the first episode. She got him the job. Him. Yeah, she got the job as the captain.
Trying to atone for cheating on him and breaking up their marriage.
Yeah. So I think that she's good on it. I like her on it. What do you think? Think it's going to be renewed or canceled?
Gun to the head, I would say too expensive to get renewed, but stranger things have happened.
True.
I got to be honest. I like the show well enough. After the third episode and the way it handled the drama of this plot of I think his name is Bortus giving birth to a daughter, and the way it dealt with that, I want to continue watching the show because I think when it's embracing the sci-fi and the drama, I think it does Star Trek better than anything we've seen from Star Trek recently, to be honest with you.
Well, like I said, the show could be saved if they spin it around and go, this is not a comedy, it's a drama. If they start doing that, it could be saved. But if they keep pushing it as a comedy, they're in trouble.
But if they don't have that parody element, they might risk angering CBS and getting sued. Some fans have argued. I have no idea why they haven't gotten sued over this show, other than maybe that they call it a parody of Star Trek. What do you think?
It sort of is, but it's loosely. It's like it does stuff that Star Trek won't do. Like, because like remember the part where she goes, she's going to get the pot brownie to meet their parents. You wouldn't see that on Star Trek.
Right, but it is the comedy and the jokes the only thing from keeping this from being copyright infringement?
I think so.
So do you think that's why they keep that? And if they got rid of that, they would risk angering CBS and Paramount for Star Trek.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think that would happen.
I have no idea. I'm just curious if you have any thought on the matter.
That may be why, because it's still, it kind of wants to be Galaxy Quest. It's not Galaxy Quest, but it kind of, I think, wants to try to be that to an extent, because Galaxy Quest was where, it's not a perfect future, and they've had shows like that, like Firefly was like that. It wasn't a perfect future. So
I'll tell you something. I met Enrico Colantani from Galaxy Quest because he was at an LA premiere for the Justice League Dark animated movie. Remember, he was in that?
Yeah, I do.
And I asked him about Galaxy Quest, and I think he mentioned, they're talking about a TV series. Do you think this show would make it hard for a Galaxy Quest TV show from getting made?
I think so, yeah. Well, no, let me really think about that. That maybe not, because...
Or could it help Galaxy Quest, maybe?
Maybe, because Galaxy Quest is a different show from this.
Right.
Yeah, so it might help it. Maybe it'll be a springboard for it. Who knows?
Well, honestly, the other thing, I like the show's art design. And I think it looks good. I mean, it doesn't... It does.
I agree.
It looks like it has a TV budget, but I think what they do with their clear budget, I think looks pretty impressive for the most part.
I agree. It looks good. Yeah, I agree with that.
Have you seen any of the new Discovery show?
No, I haven't had a chance to yet.
Okay, so last thing I wanted to talk about is another TV series. So we've been getting a lot of stuff in the last few weeks for Marvel's The Punisher TV series. Did you see the new trailer? What did you think of the new trailer and promos? Did you see that footage of him just wrecking those guys in the forest, jumping out of the bushes, I'm coming for you, man. Frank Castle, the Punisher, is coming for you.
I don't remember if I saw the forest one, but I saw the new trailer, and I like it. It gets me really pumped for it. And the song, I guess, a perfect song for the trailer.
You like Metallica?
Yeah, so I'm really pumped for this show, and it's cool too where they just don't tell you when it's coming out. You're just 2017. So I think it's because it kind of shows Frank Castle as a man first, and then why he becomes who he is and why he's doing what he's doing now. Interesting
thing about the release date, someone on Reddit posted a photo of a Total Magazine article on the Punisher, and the date in the article, I think, is October. It's either 12th or 13th. So that now, obviously, that's not confirmed. So let me make that clear. That's just a date that was printed in an article on the Punisher that appears in a published magazine. So, do you think that could be the actual release date, Jay?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean,
October 13th. I'm looking at the magazine right here. It's in the November issue of Total Film.
I wouldn't believe it. Because it could be, but it could be just totally something they pulled out of their butts. It's a possibility.
Well, if a magazine like Total Film did that, that would be pretty egregious on their part, and they would have, I don't know.
Yeah.
They would have, that's pretty messed up to just make up a date like that and put it in an article.
Or maybe they heard it from somebody and they thought it was legit, but it wasn't legit. I mean, that could have happened.
Even still, you can't print it like it's a fact, because it's a rumor then. It's not a confirmed announcement.
Yeah.
Now it's possible they got that date from Marvel and Netflix and they printed it prematurely. Possible. I'm not certain.
Maybe.
But I would say it's a possibility we might want to consider.
Maybe.
What do you think of John Bernthal as the Punisher?
I think he's going to be great. He was really good in season 2 of Daredevil, and it looks like what's going to be on this show now from this new trailer is he's someone who's being hunted. So he has to kind of
is he hunting the hunters?
Well, he is going after them, but he's being hunted by all these organizations now. So I think that's kind of cool.
Have you read any of the classic Punisher stories like War Journal or Welcome Back Frank or anything?
No, I haven't. No.
Well, here's your homework. You can look at War Journal or Welcome Back Frank is a pretty popular run by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon, and I would recommend you read it either through, I don't know, Kindle or Comixology or Marvel Now or something. Some of those digital comic services. I'm very excited for this series. I thought Bernthal was great in Daredevil, and I can't wait to see him back in his own series. Hopefully it will be better than the way Defenders ended, and it will be better than Iron Fist.
Yeah, definitely better than Iron Fist, I hope. Sheesh.
I would hope.
Now one more thing. Did you watch the new episode of Marvel Spider-Man?
Which one? The one that was on this weekend?
Yeah.
I have not seen it yet.
Okay. Check it out. It was pretty good.
Who was in it this weekend?
We got to see another web crawler come in. Miles Morales, pretty much.
So Miles Morales, what do they call him? Do they call him Spider-Man 2, or what do they say?
He's kind of a Spider-Man as well. But yeah, I thought it was good.
They call him Kid Arachnid, or do they call him Spider-Man?
I think he's just called Spider-Man.
But Peter is Spider-Man.
I know, but there's 2 Spider-Mans now.
Did he actually call himself Spider-Man?
Yes. Yeah.
You see, what they did in Ultimate Spider-Man, he was Spider-Man when we meet Miles Morales, but he was from a different, like, alternate reality where Peter Parker died.
Interesting.
But then when he comes back to Peter's dimension, they give him they just call him Kid Arachnid instead, since calling him Spider-Man would be confusing. You see what I mean?
It's kind of funny. That's the name of this episode is Ultimate Spider-Man. That's the name of the episode.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean that's what happened in the. Do you remember the Ultimate Marvel Comics line?
I know.
All right, so there's
a little bit about it.
There's the Ultimate Marvel Comics line. In the Ultimate Marvel Comics line, a teenage Peter Parker who was Spider-Man died, and then Miles Morales assumed the new role of Spider-Man. And the series, it was the Ultimate Spider-Man comic series. So that's why it's called that.
Yeah. I know a bit about that, yeah.
Okay, so that's what was going on there. So Miles Morales is assuming the role of the new wall crawler in the show. So I'll be looking forward to that because it is. I'm liking the show so far. So
I do too, and I think it's one of the better episodes of the season because you get to see that happen. It's kind of how his origin is. There's a cool few things that happen along the way, and so I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good episode.
All right, so that is it for this week's edition of Hollywood Purgatory. I'm Jeffrey Harris. You can check out my reviews of Kingsman, The Golden Circle, and the Lego Ninjago movie at 411mania.com, or you can go to 411mania.com/movies. Jay, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on the Good Men Project in the Arts and Entertainment section and on Deviate Publishing. I do some smaller stuff on there as well.
Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next week. This is Hollywood Purgatory, where Hollywood goes to get judged and get good.
Yep.